Welcome to the Transgender Equality Summit of 2024. Welcome to Reynolds, Arkansas. Hosted by the Youuu organization, myself, I'm the ED. I'm glad to have you all here. Okay, this is our third year running this. This is historical. Okay, because this is all transmasculine panel, and we focus on transmasculinity. My name is Keon Anderson. Excuse me. I am Keon Anderson out of Little Rock. Okay, the Youuu organization is my organization. I'm the founder and the executive director. All right. We started here in 2021. In the state of Arkansas. We are the only transmasculine-led organization, BIPOC organization in the state of Arkansas. So that is history.
Yes.
Thank you all for being here. We've been focusing on my panel. This is the third year of my panel. We were focusing on transmasculinity, as I told you, the different faces of transmasculinity. The first two were about Southern panels. This year, we're bringing the East Coast. So we can see what my brothers have to bring. I want to hear the difference, because it is difference in the coast of what we go through. And we have some great advocacy, some providers up here, consultants, and their leaders in their field. So I'm glad to have everyone here. We have Quinton Reynolds, Executive Director of Game Changing Men and founder of Georgia. We have Juan Alston, true to himself. He's the founder, Executive Director, and is the president of House of GE's board. As well. We have Mr. SyBastian Smith, SyBastian Smith Consulting, out of Atlanta, Georgia, as well. Our moderator for today is Baugh, founder and executive director of Ubuntu House in Atlanta, Georgia. Out of New York City, all the way to New York City, thank you for being here. We have Sasha Alexander, co-executive founder of Black Transmedia, and what else? You my guy. Yes, that's you talking about Sasha Alexander.
I'm also the director of membership of the Sylvia Rivera Law Project.
Thank you. Here we have Mr. Sincere Porter, and you're from the. Go ahead. I can't remember.
Atlanta. I'm the trans self-coordinator at Feminist Atlanta.
I heard you just here, we're going to tell you about reproductive rights and all that. We're going to get into everything that we're going to. So let's get this started. I'm going to pass this over to Derek, and he's going to moderate this, and let's go. You have any questions after? Hey, it's open floor.
Thank you, Keon. So yes, my name is Derek. I am the founder and executive director of Ubuntu, in addition to being the marketing and media manager at Game Changing Men. And we did have we had Keon do a brief introduction, but I'm gonna pass the microphone to each of the panelists and just allow you to take a minute or two to say more about the work that you do in your respective state.
Thank you, Derek. Hey, everyone. Again, my name is SyBastian Smith, and my pronouns are he and him. I am the executive director and owner of SyBastian Smith Consulting, LLC, out of Atlanta, Georgia. I do a lot of consulting for a lot of medical clinics, a lot of other nonprofit organizations, specifically those that are targeting trans masc and trans men folks, those of us of color. So I do that, and then also I am the organizing director. Used to be the National Center for Trans Equality. We have recently merged with the Transgender Legal Defense and Education Fund. We are now advocates for trans equality. So I'm the organizing director at Advocates for Trans Equality, and I head up all of our mobilization activities and all of our election and voting campaigns and things of that nature, all the outreach around all that stuff. So a lot of policy work on that end.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Juan Alston. Here representing the House of GG. But in Virginia, I am the owner and founder of True to Self LLC. Basically, With True to Self, I do a lot of mental health work. I'm a qualified mental health counselor. So I do a lot of mental health counseling, and it's about building self-esteem, teaching self-love, self-respect. So I do a lot of consulting work with that, but I'm also on the Virginia Health Department board. So when it comes to STIs, HIV, I'm doing a lot of advocacy work for that. But lately, my focus has been on transgender, male and female. So we're working on projects as far as, excuse me, the needle exchange program. We're working on trying to get everybody tested, and as we all, well, we'll get into that later, but that's what I'm doing in Virginia. That's what it looks like for me.
Hey everybody, I'm Quinton Reynolds, the Executive Director for Game Changing Men. We are based in Atlanta, but we do a lot of work throughout the South, particularly working with trans men and transmasculine folks. A lot of our focus areas is sexual reproductive health. We do a lot of data collection, leadership training and career development for transmasculine folks and trans youth overall. And so we do a lot of work I mentioned throughout the South, also into the Midwest, and we'll talk about some of the work that we do.
Thanks for keeping the mic fresh. Peace, y'all. I'm Sasha Alexander. I come from the occupied Lenape territory, also known as New York City, Brooklyn. I use the pronouns he and she and they, and insist that you mix them up or use my name, Sasha. I am a non-binary transmasculine person. I've been organizing since I was a young person, and teaching filmmaking and making films for, close to 20 years. I founded Black Trans Media like a decade ago because there was a lot of representation starting to pop up of Black trans people, but we weren't the authors of our own story. And I felt like there was always either some anti-Blackness or racism or transphobia impacting our stories really being able to be told. So I'm a storyteller, an organizer, and healer, and I also do a lot of direct service work. I've been at the Sylvia Rivera Law Project for a decade, doing movement building and providing direct services to low-income trans folks. So excited to be here, proud of my brothers and my comrades, and yeah.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Sincere Porter. Some may know me by OG pronouns or he, him. A little bit about me and my background. Initially started with HIV, Ryan White, harm reduction, HIV counselor, educator, tester in Florida, advocate and activist for community. Transferred to Atlanta, basically out of a need for the transmasculine, trans man, TGNC community being left out of the Roe versus Wade conversation and what that looks like for sexual reproductive health for all of us universally in this community. So I am now the trans health coordinator for HIT, BIPOC, TGNC, transmasculine, trans men community at a nationwide renowned reproductive justice clinic in Atlanta. I help bridge and connect our community with the access to reproductive justice, health, whether that's starting family, stopping family. My clinic also is a sperm bank. We assist with fertility. I start HRT, gender affirming care, on the same day. No need to have somebody else's opinion and paperwork to say what you need for yourself. Care is care. And that's basically why I moved to Atlanta, to make sure that our community, the transmasculine, trans man, BIPOC, TGNC community, is not continuously left out of the conversation, and the right and access to reproductive justice as it pertains to us and our rights and body autonomy and what it looks like to start family, whatever.
So we obviously have a lot of folks who work in reproductive health care, direct services, those sorts of things on the panel. So I want to start out talking about reproductive health care, obviously, right? And we know that reproductive health care is a really big umbrella and it covers a lot of different things, right? But we also want to talk about like harm reduction. So question for the panelists, everybody take a minute or two, and how can healthcare providers reduce harm when providing reproductive health care to trans men and transmasculine folks? What does reducing harm look like in those spaces?
Reducing harm looks like reducing biases, reducing, I want to say in my capacity, reducing what was intentionally or additionally taught about healthcare and what it looks like and who has access. Being a patient, I'm also a veteran, so I have to deal with the VA. Pretty sure like most of my comrades, my brothers and sisters in here, a lot of our doctor's appointments, first hour and a half, we have to teach about healthcare. Not about healthcare, just about being human and our excesses and the lack of access that we have. So we spend a lot of our time advocating, teaching for ourselves in those spaces. So for me, when I'm going to a doctor, I don't want to go in as patient, whatever. I want my doctor to be able to be comfortable, to be able to educate themselves, continuously educate themselves on the diverse communities that they assist and tend to, which is our community in particular, but to also be intentional on the vows and that they took to serve our health and to give that access to just humanity in general. So for me, I would like to be able to be, my doctor to ask me questions, get to know me as a person. Not know me as my gender or my sexuality, but know me as a person, which would get me comfortable to lead you into my gender and sexuality, because one of the first things I'm doing as a patient, I'm coming in protected. So I want to have a provider where I'm able to come in that sees me as a person, that understands, that protects me health-wise as a person, that understands regardless of how I identify, where I lay in this spectrum, that I still should have access to health care that protects me as a person. Mm-hmm. And that for me starts with the internal biases and all the judgments and everything internalized. Those things.
Lack of continued education and just a general lack of knowledge. You don't have to teach her. You don't want to be sitting on the table and have to teach your provider about you. That's what I hear you saying. SyBastian, you want to add to that?
Sure, Dick, I'll add to that. I think when I think about harm reduction, for me, I think there's an idea that trans men or trans mass folk show up into those medical spaces a certain way. Like we're all, like this idea of cis heteronormity, right? Like we're all straight. We all, we all live a certain life, a certain way, that we all are, in relationships with cisgender women or cisgender men or whatever it may be. I think even now, we're having more conversations about the broadness of how we show up, not only in our gender identity, but our sexual identity as well. And again, I think a lot of times, specifically about like my experiences and some that I hear from some of my other siblings and brothers, is that there's an idea that we show up, we all live the same way. Or we all showing up with the same issues, and a lot of things are overlapping, don't get me wrong, we do share some similarities. However, there are some differences I think our doctors should pay attention to, because that will reduce our anxiety coming in. And Sincere was talking to, once I feel comfortable talking to you about all the many pieces of me and not just this one thing. So don't paint us in a broad stroke is what I'm getting to, right? Like we don't all look the same, we don't all have the same experiences. Yeah, there's something similar, but when doctors and our providers understand that reduces harm. That reduces you harming me by not seeing me in my fullness when I come to your office for a service.
So I want to piggyback on what SyBastian said, as far as you, like the doctors not harming us, but when you have anxiety to go to the doctor and you've been mistreated when you go to healthcare, whatever, it stops you from wanting to even worry about your healthcare. So that's something that I'm seeing in my community in Virginia, is that, after time of being mistreated, misgendered, looked at like you're not human, you put this guard up You put this guard up, you don't trust them. And so when you have stuff really going on with you that you need to, be seen by, you don't want to do it. You ignore it because you're scared, you're afraid of being humiliated, embarrassed, made to feel less than in this healthcare. So one thing that we're working on in Virginia is we're putting a panel together because we don't have that many doctors that are experienced with people that look like us. You know what I'm saying? We don't have that. But what we can do, the doctors that are there to serve and take care of us, we have training that we're putting in place. Bedside manners. What to say, what not to say. If you're unsure of who you're talking to and what you're, what they, excuse me, I'm nervous a little bit, but if you're unsure of their pronouns, let's address them as their names. Or, simple question, sir, ma'am, how should I address you? Instead of assuming all the time, like SyBastian said, ask questions. That way you're not offending anyone. And so, my brother Sincere was talking about with the veterans. I'm a veteran as well. And one thing that I went through was because the military, they will acknowledge the change. You transition, but you'll never get rid of your biological gender. So it will be still in the system, and even though you've submitted all your supporting documents, they can still put an asterisk and then put, prefer to be, dressed as male, right? But one thing that they were doing wrong, instead of just saying veteran Porter or veteran Smith, because they still saw that little piece, Mr. or Miss Smith, they were still misgendering people. Not the doctors, but the people that you have to deal with before you even get to the doctor. So it's about bedside manners. And I have a saying, you have to teach people how to treat you. So, of course, we don't want to spend our time training and teaching, but if they're not experienced, they have to be taught and trained. So we're working on a panel of doctors that serve our people, and we're getting doctors that do serve and that are experienced. And we're having a panel, and we're going to have training so that they can know what to say, what not to say, how to approach people. And this is going to help with healthcare, with access to healthcare, and make people want to trust and want to go and be seen.
I want to talk a little bit about visibility and representation when it comes to reproductive health. I think part of it, right, it is on the providers, but part of it is also on us. Sincere talked about the exclusion of trans men and transmasculine folks from the whole movement when it came to Roe versus Wade and reproductive rights all over. And so I think a piece of it is like conversations like this, going out and talking to providers, making sure that they are competent when they are providing services. Let's say that they have services for trans men, transmasculine folks. And then I think also a piece of it is like the representation, like what is the office like, right? If this is a women's clinic, 9 times out of 10, I'm not gonna be comfortable going into a women's clinic when I'm gonna be the only person that looks like me, right? And so I think it's being intentional for healthcare providers, right? Or you having somebody that's on staff that is a transmasculine person that can help this person navigate what that's like within whatever clinic or organization that you're working for. And if you don't have somebody on staff, is your all around staff trained year round? And so it's not just saying that, oh, we were trained once and then that's it. No, it's a continuation of training. And then also being intentional with community partners, right? If you don't have nobody on staff, like what partners are you working with within the community that have connections to this community? Because a lot of times we're hearing, oh, we don't know where the trans men and transmasculine folks are. And a lot of times it's because you're not connected to them. And so be intentional about partnerships, about connecting with folks. Be intentional about the representation. Like, if folks are not feeling comfortable when you partner, maybe listen to those transmasculine folks and organizations say, hey, we're not comfortable coming. Can y'all make a day where it's a clinic for transmasculine folks where they can come get the services that they need? Because the exclusion when it comes to reproductive health, we still have, not everybody, right? And so, but if you do still have the body parts, right, you should go get them checked out because there's no telling what could happen. Anything could happen. And so, it being a prevention method, it being just like regular health care, like me going to check up on my health should be reproductive health care. It should be something separate. It should be something that, and it's also family planning that's reproductive health. And so if we think about it in that aspect and it not being such a gender thing, I think we can really shift what reproductive health looks like.
You can have Sasha close us out on this question.
Okay. I appreciate this question, everything everybody said. I was just thinking about the narrative, you know, the narrative of who is giving birth or who is having a child. Like, it goes back to language. And if, you know, people might say birthing people, right, versus when you're in a place and they're like women or mothers, right? Like, creating an environment that is welcoming and affirming of all the kinds of folks who are having families. And we have to shift the narrative to do that. It's nothing new that we've been having families. You know, trans and queer people have been having families as long as people have been having families, you know, but that narrative of who it is that's having children, right, that needs to shift. And the other thing is the actual discrimination that people experience. I live in New York City where people think it is much more progressive. There's a lot of policies to protect us. I know a brother who was told he couldn't sit in the waiting room when he was pregnant and he was waiting to get services because he made women uncomfortable in the waiting room. So where was he supposed to go and what was he supposed to do, you know? And he had ended up experiencing a lot of trauma and harm through his process, and he ended up losing his children in that process. And there wasn't support for him. There wasn't support while he was carrying. You know, people used to joke around, oh, they just think he's a big guy. Nobody gets up and gives him a seat. Nobody cares how he's doing as a pregnant person, right? So there's also just like, there's the discrimination and the actual experience we have, you know? And then the other thing I want to say is, like, people don't think about it, but housing is part of reproductive justice. So many of our people in our communities do not have solid housing or stable housing, or they're incarcerated, or, right? These are all things that affect somebody's ability to have a family and have children. That's time that is taken away from your life when you would be having a family. Right? That's a safe space that you don't have access to be able to be with your family or to have a family. So I just want to say, I think there's a lot of different issues and they don't even, it's not even trans-specific, right? That these are issues that affect people who are having families, but for us, we have to deal with that added level of discrimination and lack of training or cultural competency from providers, right? That then we end up doing that on our own or not getting the support we need. So absolutely agree with everything everybody said.